Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video on the channel today. Just like we did last week, me and my boy Tyler got our underdog picks for week 4 of the NFL year. Some of my picks were pretty good last week, and some of mine just didn't pan out. You know, Jacksonville really messed me up last week, man. I really did not think the game was going to go the way it was. I screwed up a few of my picks, but it's all right. We're back. We each got our 5 favorite underdog picks for this week. Before we get into the video, don't forget to subscribe if you want more underdog picks. And Ty, how you feeling about this week, man?
I feel better about this week than I did last week. I'll tell you that because you know what? There were a lot of blowouts. There was a lot of things that didn't go our way. This week's the week. We're going to make some money this weekend. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, totally agree. Did you want to start? I went first last time, so did you want to start with your first, and then we can kind of alternate pick by pick?
Yeah, let's do it. The first one I got, just going straight into it, Stephon Diggs over 6.5 receptions. I say this because I think this is going to be a very high-scoring game between two AFC teams, same division, must-win game. I think for both these teams in terms of trying to get that AFC division locked up. So I'm going to be taking Stephon Diggs over 6.5 receptions. He's hit it in every single game so far this season. They're missing Jalen Ramsey. Obviously, he hasn't played a game just yet, but that's a key part of their defense right there. So I do like Stephon Diggs getting this over in a game where he needs to get fed the ball.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the game plan for the Bills, they're going to have to be in a track meet with the Dolphins, right? They're going to have to throw the ball. And who else is Josh Allen going to rely on consistently other than Stephon Diggs? I think 6.5, like you said, he's gone over that every single game. This is a game they're going to need to throw the ball, and they're going to need to put up points. So really like Stephon Diggs over 6.5. My first pick, speaking of that same game, we're going to stick with the Bills and Dolphins here. The other star wide receiver in this game, Tyreek Hill, I have him going over 25 yards after catch. Now, this isn't 25 yards, 25 yards after catch. Tyreek Hill, let's be completely honest here, is the fastest player in the NFL. He is the shiftiest, the best with the ball in his hands. You guys know what that is, right? I think the Dolphins love to do the quick game, the RPOs, the slants, all of that type of stuff, and they let Tyreek Hill just play around with the defense after he's got the ball in his hands. That's not even adding to the fact that Tua maybe can hit him on some deep shots where he goes on and scores. I think 25 yards after catch is pretty good, and I think that Tyreek Hill is going to hit it in a game, like I just said, where both teams are going to need to pass the ball a lot.
That's another one I totally agree with there. I mean, Tyreek Hill, he's always working the open field, man. And I think he's been so dominant this year so far. A lot of the yardages we've seen have been after the catch for Tyreek Hill. So, dude, another one I like. I think we're 2 for 2 so far, Mike.
We definitely are 2 for 2. I like it a lot.
My favorite right here, I mean, this might be my favorite one of the day. It's really how you look at it. Jalen Warren over 2.5 receptions. Now, you look at it and think, yeah, he's not the main running back over in Pittsburgh, but we haven't really seen Najee in many 3-down sets. I think this is going to be the game where we see Jalen Warren thrive, especially in the backfield in the passing game. He's got to get 3 of them, and I know that sounds like a lot for running back, but the Texans, they've been passing the ball, or they've been allowing a lot of these running backs to get over that line. Travis Etienne had 4 this past game, and just before that, Zach Moss had 4 as well. Not to mention that Jalen Warren's hit this prop every single game so far this NFL season. I feel like this is a pretty good one. I don't know why it's set at 2.5. It could get bumped up to 3 pretty soon, but I'm going to be taking it at 2.5.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I really like to see about Jalen Warren, he seems like he has more juice than Najee Harris.
Yes.
And I think the snap distribution, at least I think the coaches at the Steelers agree with us a little bit. I like Jalen Warren. Again, initially I was kind of like, but you said it. Texans allow a lot of points to running backs, fantasy points that is, in PPR. And then he's hit that every single game. So I like it. I think it's a good pick. Moving on to my next pick, I have a guy that kind of is surprising a lot of people with how good he is so far this year. DeAndre Swift, I'm going to take him to have over 65.5 rushing yards against the Washington Commanders. Now, I know the Washington defensive line is really, really good. But you know what else is really good? The Eagles' offensive line. And, you know, I don't know if you agree with me, Ty, but I think the Eagles' offense has looked a little off. Jalen Hurts has looked a little off without Shane Steichen. And I think that they're just going to lean into run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. I mean, we've seen the last 2 games. They've really just been spamming inside zone, and it's been working for them because their offensive line is so good. DeAndre Swift is getting north and south. He's getting a lot of rushing yards, and I think at this point he surpassed Kenneth Gainwell as the running back 1 in Philly. I think DeAndre Swift over 65.5 yards rushing is another one of my best plays for this week.
I like it. I think the only thing that worries me is you never know what Gainwell could do. But Swift has looked so dominant in that backfield so far. It's hard to take that away from him. So I like that play as well. I just think Washington is going to scare a lot of people away from this prop. Can't be wrong with it, though. I mean, seriously, it's a great prop right there. Brock Purdy is going to be my next one, over 225.5 passing yards. Now, again, they're playing Arizona Cardinals, a team that, is not really that great, but they're playing some good football. They always play tough against their opponents. Had a great game against Dallas this past week, unfortunately. As a Dallas fan, it does hurt to say that. But 225.5. Brock Purdy has been throwing the ball a lot, coming off of a 300-yard passing game against the New York Giants. I understand that CMC is probably going to get a lot of work in this game. I just think that it's easy for Brock Purdy to get over this yardage just because I think it's going to be a closer game than people think. I think the Cardinals have played so tough against all these teams. This line has been hitting recently. Dak Prescott hit it, and we saw a week before that, Daniel Jones hit it as well. It just makes sense for me to Brock Purdy throw the rock a little bit. I know Debo's supposed to be out this game, but that still leaves it up for Brandon Ayuk, CMC out of the backfield, or George Kittle. And that seems like a pretty low number for Brock Purdy. So I'm going to go with 225.5 for Purdy.
As a Cowboys fan, would you rather the 49ers just shit stomp the Cardinals this week, or do you want it to be a competitive game to feel a little bit better about last week? What do you think on that?
Competitive game, 1,000%.
Yeah,
It would make me
game.
feel so much better just because
Yeah.
I feel like we should have won that game from the first place, but I feel like the Cardinals are kind of being underrated right now. I don't want to say that just because of that Cowboys loss, but if you really look about it, they played hard against Washington, had a great game against the New York Giants, even though, they fell through in the end. And then they played pretty great against the Cowboys. I mean, 3 good games so far. I would love to see another close one over in, I think it's in Santa Clara this week. Yeah, it is in Santa Clara.
Yeah, no, I love Brock Purdy over 225. You mentioned Brandon Ayuk is back. That's huge. Run CMC is obviously going to get a lot of, I think, passes out of the backfield, and George Kittle is George Kittle. I really like that prop. I think it's a good one, and unfortunately, I think that what should have been the result last week is going to be the result this week in terms of the lines. But going on to my next prop here, this is another quarterback, and it's going to be Bryce Young. Now, Bryce Young missed last week against the Seahawks with, I believe it was an ankle injury. He's back this week against the Minnesota Vikings, and his completion percentage prop is set at 66.5, and I'm going to go under. I think Bryce Young has really struggled this year. I think the receivers for the Carolina Panthers are kind of mediocre. Not that I think the Vikings defense is great by any stretch of the imagination, but I just don't think that it's clicked yet for him. I still think his offensive line is kind of in shambles. His receivers, like I said, aren't great, and he hasn't kind of figured it out yet. I think 66.5 is a pretty good mark in the NFL. I mean, that's a really good season if you do that in 17 games. 66.5 is a little bit high. I'm going to go under for completion percentage for Bryce Young.
Another one I like. I will say Bryce Young intrigues me for tomorrow just because of that defense he's playing. I mean, I think Minnesota's pretty crappy overall. I mean, we saw what they've done there. That's the reason they're 0-3. But if anything, completion percentage doesn't have a huge play in that. I can see his fantasy score going over. Props like that. I do like Bryce Young tomorrow, but for the completion percentage, totally valid. I totally get that. For my next one, I'm going to go Kenny Pickett under an interception, or half an interception, I should say. I like this because he's playing the Houston Texans, and it's as simple as that. I think Kenny Pickett has controlled the ball relatively well so far this season. I don't think he threw an interception this past week against Las Vegas. And he was, everybody was favoring him to throw an interception that game. I don't see it happening in this one. I think we're going to see, if anything, a blowout in this one, to be quite honest with you guys. I know the Texans have played some pretty good football so far, but I think that Steelers defense is pretty good. I think they're going to be playing a lot of ahead football early on. This will be a game where we see C.J. Stroud throw a lot from behind. I just don't think that the Texans offense is going to be able to pair up with that Steelers defense. And I think that Kenny Pickett's going to have a lot of control in this game, so they're not going to be throwing the ball as much, at least down the field as much. So I think under an interception makes a lot of sense here.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you just think about it from a game philosophy standpoint, right? I think what Mike Tomlin's message to Kenny Pickett this week should be is, hey, you have the Steelers defense behind you. You have T.J. Watt. You have Alex Highsmith. You have these guys to play against a rookie and C.J. Stroud. Your job is to go out there and just not lose the game, right? I think game manager is kind of a derogatory term sometimes, but I really don't think it's disrespectful in this instance. Kenny Pickett's got to manage the game. Don't make mistakes. You don't have to hit a bunch of deep shots. Just don't make mistakes and let us win the game, right? I think they're going to play more safe and more conservative on offense in terms of turning the ball over. I agree. I wouldn't expect Kenny Pickett to have an interception in this game at all. And then for my next pick, which is ironic choice of words there, I have Justin Fields passing yards. Now, if you want to make money in the NFL, you bet the under on Justin Fields passing yards. And unfortunately, last week I was stupid. I took the over. I took over, I think, 199. I don't even think he cracked 100. Not a smart move on my behalf. But Justin Fields, under 186 passing yards against the Broncos defense. Again, I think if you think about the way the NFL works, a team just gave up 70 points, right? I don't necessarily think the Broncos are a bad unit. They might not be the best coached, but I don't think they're a bad unit, right? To give up 70 points, you have to feel disrespected. You have to feel slighted a little bit. You're going to want to get some revenge. Justin Fields has not really been great at all this year. The Bears have really, really struggled to do anything on offense. 186 is a little bit too high for my liking. I'm going to go under. Additionally, I think if he would go over, it would be because of DJ Moore, but I think Patrick Surtain will be able to keep DJ Moore in wraps. I think under for Justin Fields passing yards is the move tomorrow.
I like that one too. Fields has just been so bad this season. Like, it's laughable. It really is laughable at this point.
It's like a laugh through the pain, for Bears fans. It's like, he had 91 yards passing against Patrick Mahomes. So that's
and I feel so bad for Bears fans. I really do. I mean, the whole situation, Eberflus, Fields not finding the guys down the field. It's a rough sight overall.
It's bad, man. It's terrible.
But my next and last prop is going to be T. Higgins over 4.5 receptions. There's a couple of reception props that I like over this week. I like T. Higgins a lot for a couple of reasons. This guy has been getting at least 8 targets in every game he's played so far. He had 8, 12, and 8 so far in the first 3 games of the season. The reception numbers aren't there just yet, but if anybody's going to have a good game against the Tennessee Titans, it's going to be Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I can see them both going over the reception and receiving yards prop, but I like T. Higgins here just for the volume here. Again, 8 targets a game. He's got to catch 5 of them, and I think he's easily going to do so. I think this is going to be a back-and-forth game as well. Not in that saying that, the Bengals are worse or close to the Titans at all. I just think with the way that Burrow's throwing it, it's not going to be as, big of a blowout or at least a higher scoring game as people think. I think it's going to be a little bit back and forth, just, drives going back and forth, making it easy for one another. So I like T. Higgins here over 4.5 receptions. I think Burrow's going to have to force feed it to guys like that, especially in a game where the Tennessee Titans, I think, have had a pretty good run defense so far this season. Got to see Burrow and the boys throw the ball. Hopefully T. Higgins is the guy that gets it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think as the season goes on, I think the calf injury for Joe Burrow is going to become less and less of a factor. Pair that with the fact, like you said, T. Higgins has been getting a lot of targets so far, which is almost always a good sign for receptions. Like, it'll kind of even itself out after a while. I do think that he'll hit over 4.5 receptions. I like this prop from you, Ty. And then my last prop, speaking of receivers, my last one, I'm going to talk about Tank Dell, who had a monster week last week for the Houston Texans. I'm going to go Tank Dell over 5.5 targets for C.J. Stroud. I think they're building a bit of a rapport. And as we mentioned, we do think the Steelers are going to win this game. I agree with you. That means that the Texans will be playing from behind. That means the Texans will be throwing the ball. I also think that their run game will be non-existent going up against the Steelers' D-line. I mean, their offensive line is in shambles right now. I think they're on like some third stringers. Terrible. They're going to be throwing the ball. I think Nico Collins is going to get a lot of looks. Over 5.5 targets is a prop that I really like. And that's my last one for the day. So, yeah, those are each of our top 5 props for Underdog picks on Sunday. Let us know in the comments section down below which props you agree with and which props you'll be putting money on. As per usual, Ty, thank you for coming on the channel, bro. Really, really appreciate it. I've been loving doing these videos with you. And we have another video coming out on Ty's channel, so go check it out. I'll make sure to put his link in the description below. And we'll see you guys in tomorrow's video.
Have a good one.